Order. Chris Carfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and welcome back from the dinner break, everybody. The cutaways on the parliamentary TV may show faces on the other side of the House a little bit forlorn, a bit angry about being here, but I think secretly they want to be here. Secretly, they are quite thankful that they're here at Parliament, because these are the ones that haven't gone back to their communities yet. They have not gone back to their communities and yet and said they're going to stick their motorists with a 9-cent increase in their petrol excise. So these are the ones that say, we're happy to go. They secretly, they would prefer they would 10.5. Oh, sorry, because of the GST. Sorry, I stand corrected, Mr. Speaker. I stand corrected, Mr. Speaker. It's not a 9-cent increase at all. It's 10.5 cents. It's 10.5 cents. So these are the members that are quite happy that they're here and not having to front up to the people in their communities to say that when they fill up their petrol tanks as of July 1st this year, it'll be another 3 cents, and July 1st the next year, it'll be another 3 cents, and another 3 cents in the year beyond that. So, Mr. Speaker, these ones might think they're the unlucky ones, but these are the very happy MPs that they're not going back to their home electorates and having to front up to their constituents. So they may look unhappy about being here. The last ones left, the ones who have missed their flights of the night, but they're actually very happy to be here. They're happy to be here because they're not having to front up to those constituents. They're not having to front up to the constituents and tell them that this is a budget measure of broken promises. Because I just want to remind the party over there of what their leader said, of what John Key said in 2008. Because he said National is not going to be raising GST. Wrong, they did. And National wants to cut taxes, not raise taxes. Wrong, because this is a measure, Mr. Speaker, that will increase taxes for every Kiwi who's using their cars or their trucks by 3 cents per litre over the next 3 years. And what have we heard about this, Mr. Speaker? We've heard one member, the MP from Wairarapa, John Hayes, say that the $45 more that taxpayers are going to have to pay to fill up their cars is not much money. It's not much money. Well, it may not be much money to Mr Hayes, but it certainly is a lot of money to his constituents. A lot of those people who will be filling up their tanks now and paying $45 more a year on top of the $40 more in prescription charges that this government has lumped on them, and also the GST that this government has lumped on them. And this has been a budget measure of broken promises, Mr Speaker. I didn't really get a chance to speak around the title and commencement debate, Mr Speaker, and I just wanted to offer something up, because I wanted to offer up an alternative title, and that would be the Customs and Excise Budget Advice Measures Motor Spirits. Because when people out in our communities are struggling to pay something, this is a government that makes them go out and get budget advice. They have to go and get budget advice before the government will help them. So I would suggest that this government, who has set out on a blind mission to try and build these roads of national significance and have realised that they cannot afford it, get some budget advice, because then the people of New Zealand wouldn't have to pay an extra 3 cents a litre for their petrol over the next 3 years. And, Mr Speaker, of all the bills that we've seen under this urgency motion from the budget, we've actually had a decent regulatory impact statement for this bill. And in it, very helpfully, it points out as to why the government has had to do this. And if I may quote from this document, Mr Speaker, it says forecasts of revenue and expenditure for the National Land Transport Fund in November 2012 indicated a total revenue shortfall of around $1.6 billion over the next 5 years. The shortfall is due to the timing of the Roads of National Significance program, which is identified as a key priority in the Government Policy Statement 2012. In English, for those people who are watching, and I'm sure they're thrilled to be watching parliamentary TV at this time of the night, that means that the government promised something, couldn't afford it, and now it's asking the people of New Zealand to stump up the cash to make sure that they can do that. And I want to give you one example, Mr Speaker, of a road of national significance that the government is pushing in my area, and that's the Kapiti Expressway. That's the Kapiti Expressway. And let's look at the value for money of that expressway, Mr Chair, because last year there was a leaked report, and there have been quite a few leaks out of this government, quite a few leaks, and that report said that the engineering consultants thought that the $500 million motorway project had a benefit-cost ratio of 0.2. 0.2. So for every dollar the government spent, the economic benefit of that is 20 cents. Now, I'm sure there are a few people who can count beans over there, but in my very simple maths, that's not a very good investment. In fact, that would be an awful investment. And to make it even worse, Mr. Speaker, this government is spending $515 million on this expressway. $515 million, and the return on that investment that they will generate over the next 30 years is $118 million. Now, we could have saved the government a considerable amount of money, Mr. Speaker, if they had just stuck to the plan that the people of Kapiti and that the Labour government had implemented at the end of their term. And interestingly enough, so did Mr. Nathan Guy, the MP for Otaki, because at the late in 2009, he was all go for the Western Link Road, which was the original plan for the Kapiti coast. The locals were on board, the mayor was on board, Nathan Guy was on board. We were loving it. The Kapiti coast was looking forward to it until Stephen Joyce turned up. Because I'd like to read a press release from the Honourable Mr. Nathan Guy, because he was delighted to see the Western Link Road get started. He said, "This is fantastic news for Kapiti because it will connect our communities. This new road and bridge will significantly ease traffic congestion on the existing state highway." Here he is. Oh, I've got the press release here, Nathan. I'm just reading out for the benefit of you. This is a fantastic. It's actually dated the 20th of February 2009, just so I can be more precise for you. This is fantastic news for Kapiti because it will connect up our communities. This new road and bridge will significantly ease traffic congestion and the existing state highway where we have 24,000 vehicle movements every day. And then it goes on to say that Transport Minister Stephen Joyce will be briefed on this project when he visits the Otaki Electric next month to understand how important this project is. Well, when Stephen Joyce arrived, Nathan Guy got rolled. He got rolled. And in comes the Kapiti Expressway. Instead of a local link road that all the residents of Kapiti want, Nathan Guy got rolled, and what the Kapiti coast gets is a 4-lane motorway through the beautiful and picturesque Kapiti coast. And I'll look to table that if Mr. Guy has forgotten his position in February 2009. And if they don't like it, the truth hurts. And they're quite happy about that at 7:10 on Saturday night.
Order. Would the national members please give Mr. Whāwhoi a reasonable chance? Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This was going to be a split call, but I think I'll take the whole 10 minutes. Mr. Speaker, where was I before I so rudely interrupted? This budget measure is all about creating the illusion that this government has a surplus, Mr. Speaker. And it's only a wafer-thin surplus. It's only a wafer-thin surplus of $75 million in 2 years' time. So when this government says that it's balancing the books by 1,000 cuts, nipping and tucking. It's not enough to have a bit of a nip and tuck when people go to the petrol station and fill up with their petrol. They're having a nip and tuck at the Environment Ministry. They're having a nip and tuck at the police. Actually, I'll spend a couple of minutes on the police, because what is this government doing to the police? They are running them into the ground. Huge budget cuts, especially around traffic cops. Huge budget cuts to run our police force into the ground. And this is a government said that it backs our police on law and order. It absolutely is doing the opposite. In the last 8 months, the budget pressure that the government has put our police force under has seen 219 frontline police officers leave their job. And if anyone wants to see the latest 10-1, have a look at it. 56 frontline police officers resigned in the last month. 56. So that, Mr. Speaker, that figure is only going to get worse. Mr. Speaker, this is an awful budget measure. It is there to try and create the illusion that the government has got a surplus, and a wafer-thin surplus of that, Mr. Speaker. It's an awful budget measure of breaking promises around lifting GST and saying that they will lower taxes instead of increase taxes. And with that, I wish the members opposite a very lovely evening in Wellington.
Simon O'Connor.
2 days of debate and not one constructive argument from the opposition. Mr. Speaker, this has been a good couple of days for the government.